You're listening to The Power Project. I'm your host, Brandy Voth, and I am passionate about inspiring women to lead purpose-filled lives and own their God-given power. Each week, I bring guests and topics to the table that will challenge you to answer that call that God has for your life. Welcome to Season 2. We have just wrapped up 50 episodes that are out in the universe and would not have been possible without you, the listeners. So from the very bottom of my purpose-driven heart, thank you to each and every one of you for pushing me to bring new content week in and week out. I promise you that Season 2 will bring even more guests and topics that invite us to have the hard conversations, lift each other up, and join hands to create the biggest impact possible. So without further ado, let's kick off Season 2, shall we? Welcome back to The Power Project. You guys, I have today one of my friends that is one of my real life friends, because as you guys have seen over the course of last season, I have friends far and wide across the globe that I think are just amazing human beings. But this one, I have the privilege of knowing in person and getting to see her beautiful smiling face and hug her neck whenever I have the opportunity. So you guys, welcome my friend, Jessica Brinkley. Hey, Jess, how are you?
I am great. I'm so glad to be here.
Thanks for coming on. I'm happy to have you and be here in this new season. We got to do a little brainstorming yesterday about directions of your life and my life and things that we are collaborating on in the future. So it's overdue. I'm not really certain why I haven't had you on before. I know we talked about it, but the stars have aligned. So Jessica, so you and I met through Refuge for Women, through the nonprofit that we're both involved with. And I've really, really had the joy of just getting to know you better. And, I kind of feel like I get to watch you unfold on this journey and grow as God leads you and calls you. And girl, I so wish that I would have leaned into it so much more at a younger age like you are. So,
well, I have to say, I've loved watching you just as much. I think it's really amazing to watch you. Just everything that you're doing to empower other women is so fun. So it's inspiring to me. So thank you.
Well, awesome. And that's always my biggest goal, is the fact that I want women to realize that you're not too young. You're not too old. You're not too, you're too married. You're not too single. It's never the wrong time to start following that call. But you have quite the events happening in your life right now, quite the projects that you're pursuing. So tell us a little bit about what you have going on.
Well, right now, I recently graduated with my master's in crisis response and trauma counseling. And so I'm kind of in a very crazy season of recently being a graduate, trying to figure out life. What are my next steps? And as any recent graduate knows, it can be a little chaotic. But some of the projects that have been on my heart for several years now, I'm really starting to just pursue head on. I'm just going for it. And the first one is a devotional that I got the idea for about a year and a half ago. It's called The 60-Day Guide to Surviving a Breakup, and it basically walks you through the first 2 months of a breakup. I went through a pretty bad one myself and didn't feel like I had good resources for myself. I didn't have a really good community at the time, so I was very much doing it alone. And so I told myself that one day I would write a book that would help others walk through what I walked through. And so that's kind of one that is very much a big piece of what I'm doing right now. And then I have a guided journal that I'm calling it the Someday Journal, because someday starts today. You can't just wait for someday to achieve your dreams or chase after those big milestones that you want to achieve. And then in the future, I also want to publish a book about just making those really hard seasons in life worth it. And so every season I walk through that's been really challenging, one of the main things I always told myself, and really in just talking with God, I said, God, you have to make this worth it. If I'm going to walk through this, then it's got to be worth it. You've got to allow me to pour into other people's lives in the future. And I think he's allowing me to do that. So it's very fun to kind of see those hard seasons actually count and actually be worth it. So those are some of the big projects that are in my heart and somewhat on paper.
I love it. I love a girl with goals and plans of action and dreams. And I love anyone that's willing to put themselves out there. So you're a younger, in as far as like my audience goes, you're on the younger spectrum.
Yeah.
And I mean, you just sound like you have it together so well. Do you, what do you gain your focus from? Do you feel like it's a childhood foundation that's been instilled upon you, or have you had to really work on being that directed in life?
I think it seems like I have it all together, and I'd like to think that. I think that some days I don't have it all together, as all of us are. But at the same time, I do believe that a lot of it was from my upbringing. I have two parents that are very hard workers, and we're a very driven type of family. And so I think that some of it came from that. But then also I've just had this like gut feeling for a big part of my life that really my whole life, before I even had that term, it's worth it, my whole life had to count. I wanted to leave a legacy for people. And so I think it really started in high school that I wanted to make a difference, not just in the world, but for the kingdom, for God. And so, life has hit me with big waves, and I've had ups and downs, and I've had good seasons and bad seasons. But through all of them, I've just really had this determination in me that I had to keep going forward and moving on, and just really, I guess, moving forward for other people, not just for myself, but I knew that I could inspire other people to do the same if I really pushed for those goals, pushed for those dreams, or just really pushed to be a better version of myself.
And so you talk about always wanting to make an impact for the kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there are some innate traits that we're born with that God just gives us when it comes to this being an impact maker. And I know that I personally always felt like from a very young age, life was going to be too short for me to do everything that God wanted me to do in life.
Yeah.
So I have this sense of urgency and tend to go through the same thing that you're going through, where there's multiple projects in the works, and it's like, I've got to hurry up and get this put out there.
Hey friends, if you're a parent like me, I don't have to tell you how scary of a time it is to be raising teenagers. While the internet is an amazing resource that brings us together each and every week, it can also be a playground for hidden dangers. That's why we at the Power Project have partnered with Bark, an app that's dedicated to help keep kids safe online and in real life. Last year alone, Bark helped protect nearly 3 million kids with their groundbreaking products for families and schools. By monitoring text messages, YouTube, emails, and 24 different social networks for potential safety concerns like cyberbullying, self-harm, violence, sexual predators, and more, Bark allows busy parents to rest easier knowing their kids are better protected from digital dangers. You can head over to bark.us and use promo code POWERPROJECT to save 15% off your order. That's bark.us, promo code POWERPROJECT.
Do you, as far as it being a kingdom-minded impact and not just doing good for just the world, have you always been a believer? What's your earliest memory of being a believer? Was that poured into you from your family? When did you accept it on your own? Give me your faith journey.
Yeah, I've grown up. My parents were pastors from the time I was 1 years old to 13 years old. And still we have that, my mom's now a worship leader at her church, and my dad is very involved in men's ministry. And so I have had just that God mindset poured into me my whole life. I accepted Christ at a very young age. My family went through a lot of losses. We've dealt with a lot of just death in our family. And so I think that really pushed me closer to God at a young age. But then at 15, there was just that moment where it was like, I'm choosing this for myself. And I think that's, as a believer, we have to come to that point where we choose it for ourselves, whether you grew up in a Christian home or you didn't. It really is that choice. And that's really what marked me. And that's why I think it was such a big change for me in high school to be like, I have to make a difference. I want to make a difference with my life, because it was at a youth group event, and I just had this moment with God that was like, wow, you're real. He's real if you grow up in a Christian home, because you hear it your whole life. But there's that special intimate moment that you get with your Heavenly Father that just really marks you. And that's really what made a huge difference for me.
Yeah, that intimate moment of when you really enter into relation, when
Yes.
it goes from being someone that you know about to someone
Yeah.
that you really truly know. I think that's
Yeah.
one of the best ways I've ever heard it just summed up.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Yeah.
now you were a preacher's kid, you were a PK.
Yep.
So did you ever go through a period of rebellion and not wanting to follow, the Christian plan for your life? Or was that just not anything that you ever struggled with?
Something that I've actually been thinking about recently is that I think sometimes as a PK or growing up in a Christian home, you don't realize a rebellious state as much, at least for me in my own personal life. I was so used to just, oh, God's just there. I never had to work to have a relationship with God in a way, because it was just always around. And so I think there were several years in high school that I was still a believer. I still loved God, but I was doing life my own way. And I've struggled with that multiple times. I'm now 25. And so I've gone, high school, undergrad, graduate, and that's something I still battle with, is this, oh God, I know you're there. I know who you are to some extent, but I'm still going to do life my own way. And so I constantly have to catch myself. I feel like those are my more rebellious states of doing life my own way, and it's harder to catch than just completely turning away from God and just running and doing my own thing. And so that's kind of my rebellious state in a way.
Yeah, and I think that I struggle with the exact same thing, and I was going to actually ask you about this, because my biggest struggle is just not remembering to sit and be still
Mm-hmm.
and listen. I am so guilty of telling God what I want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, and the season that I'm in, I have really been uh, intentionally focused on waiting on the Lord and listening to the Lord and being in communion with Him in a place where I can shut up and listen to Him.
Yes.
So what's your advice for ways to stop and keep yourself in check and make sure that you're following His call and His will and not your own?
I think really slowing down is a huge one, because if you're an achiever, we kind of talked about that yesterday. If you're an achiever, or if you're somebody that has these big dreams and these big plans, it is so easy to get caught up in kind of, oh, it's my way, and we think it's God's way, but it's really my way. And so really one of the things that I've learned so much is to slow down, to when I get in this state of, oh, I got to do it now, because I don't know how much time I have left on this earth, or, I have to do it now because I have all these other plans I want to do. I think when I get in that mindset, it becomes more of me and not so much God, because I think God has called us to rest, be in peace, and live in a restful state. And so for me, I just learned to kind of rein back and stop and be still, whatever that looks like for you. If it's, if it's going on a 3-day, trip somewhere to just be at peace, or taking a day off of not striving, or, whatever that looks like, talking to mentors, really just stepping back and taking a big picture look at what you're doing and where you are has really helped me realign my dreams with what God really has for my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I know that you have battled some health issues. Do you feel like any of that is kind of goes hand in hand with it being a way that God kind of slows you down a bit? And do you want to lean into talking about that a little bit, about your struggle with your health?
Yeah, I do think that one of the crazy things that I've seen in my life is I've dealt with health issues. They're similar to like autoimmune disorder issues, but whenever I am caught in like a stressful season, or I'm doing everything my own way, I start to get sick. And so I do think it's a way for God. Sometimes our natural circumstances, God's kind of giving us those red flags, like, whoa, slow down. You're not headed where I want you to go. And so I've kind of taken some of that to heart, in terms of just whenever I'm starting to not feel well, it's kind of a sign of me to say, okay, I need to reevaluate where my yeses are and where my nos are, because I think it's so important to learn the art of no. And when you're wanting to achieve all these goals and all these dreams, we sometimes get caught up in all the yeses, and yes, I have to do this, and yes, and yes, and yes, and I have to show up here and show up there. But I think it's so important that you show up for God and show up for yourself first. And when you can learn to do that, then for me, my health falls right back in line with where I'm supposed to be. And so, it's been a crazy journey with that. I ended up having to leave full-time work because I got so sick. I was plagued with anxiety and stress and gut issues and horrible adult acne and all of those other things in between. And God has really shifted my thinking, and whenever I started shifting my thinking is when my body started to respond and start to get healthy. And so it's amazing how our spiritual and mental and physical connection is all there when we really start to see it as a whole.
That's amazing. And I want to be clear here that there are health issues that are not attached to any type of disobedience with God. But I do think that occasionally that we have periods of life where God can speak to us through our body.
Yeah.
Listen to our bodies. There's so much healing that can happen, and so much direction that we can receive. So I think that's incredible. And I love the fact that, I remember when you stepped back and you said, look, this is what I'm doing for me. And I think that's when I really saw you start flourishing, as far as not that you weren't following God's call and you weren't serving his people and you weren't doing what you were supposed to do previously, but it was when I saw these projects start emerging from you, where you could tell that you had been leaning into listening to him and his call and paying attention to your body.
This episode is brought to you by Brandy Both Beauty. Have you tried the #1 skincare brand in all of North America? Well, if not, today is your day. Head over to the-powerproject.com, click on Powerful Beauty, and take a 30-second skincare consultation to see what products are recommended for your skin concerns. Email yourself those results, and then I will personally mail you a thank you gift for your time. That's thepowerproject.com, Powerful Beauty.
On that subject of the projects and the ways that you're involved, how did you choose a degree in crisis response and trauma counseling. Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, interesting choice, right?
Yeah.
Well, really, it comes from my passion of human trafficking. That's how, of course, you and I have connected. And God just radically brought this topic of human trafficking into my life around 2012, 2013. And I've had lots of different experiences with that over the years. But then I started working at Refuge for Women and just really wanted to learn more about trauma. And so this degree, it's from Liberty University. It was crisis response and trauma, and those words were right up what I wanted to study. And so I just did that, and I learned so much about trauma, and working at a safe house was really amazing because I got to have not only that hands-on experience with trauma, but then some of the book knowledge, and learning how to kind of balance those two was really an incredible educational experience overall.
And you say that God radically brought the subject of human trafficking into your sphere in 2012, 2013. How did you first learn about it?
Well, I actually, it was one of those years at the beginning of the year, I said, God, I want you to speak to me through dreams. I just kind of boldly asked that. And it was a couple weeks later that I had this dream that I was walking down into like a basement area, and God said, I need you to go save them. And I was like, what are you even talking about? And I was like, okay, God, I don't understand this. And I woke up, and then I had another dream, probably about a week or two later, of being taken by men. I had a dream of being assaulted by a cop. And I was like, God, what in the world are these dreams? And then the topic of human trafficking started becoming talked about. It wasn't really talked about before a whole lot in the media and stuff. And so then I was like, oh my goodness, this is what I've been dreaming about. And so I knew that I needed to get involved. And so that's kind of how it started. And it's just evolved from there.
So when you had this dream of going into the basement and having God speak into you that you needed to go save them, have you had any experience in modern day life that you can, because I know the answer to this one.
Yes and no. I haven't actually gone into a basement and saved anybody, but I did a couple years ago, and I even laugh at myself now about it. We were on a family cruise, and we were at the port in Cozumel, and if you've ever been to the port of Cozumel, you can very clearly see Men's Club written in several different locations. And I was in a shop, and there was some stairs, and it said Men's Club upstairs. And so I just decided to walk on up. And of course, you think Men's Club, you automatically think strip club. So I'm thinking music and women dancing. Well, there was none of that. There was just women standing in a line on a wall, and they had, short shorts on and low cut t-shirts, and they were just standing there. And so obviously more like a brothel situation, not so much a men's club. And I had a pimp or whoever ran the men's club run up behind me and said, what are you doing? And I just turned around and I hit him on the shoulder and I said, this is disgusting. I hope you understand what you're doing. And I just walked out. And people think I'm crazy for doing it, and I probably was, but I think it's just one of those bold moments that I was like, I'm going to go in here and tell these people what's up, and didn't think twice about the danger or anything else. So,
there was no wrestle with God. There was no like, this might not be a safe situation. I might not should do that. That it was just go boldly and proclaim the truth.
Exactly. And I don't recommend just doing that whenever or wherever.
Nope.
There were lots of people around, so I wouldn't have just gone down a back alley and walked into a brothel. But I knew that there were lots of people around. My family was even in that same shop. And so I wasn't going to just go in, but I was going to go up the stairs and peek my head in and tell some people off if I could. And so I did. And I'm always taken back to that moment when I need a spark of boldness for myself too, because it's like that I don't do that all the time. And sometimes I doubt myself, even with that much boldness. But at the same time, in that moment, I was bold, and I was bold with Jesus. And so I always go back to that moment, especially when I'm working with in the human trafficking world of like, I've been called to do this. This wasn't just a silly pizza dream. This was a God-given calling on my life. And so I always remind myself of those bold moments that I had there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's impressive. I think that I never would. I mean, of course I hear it and I'm like, Jessica, you're nuts. Like,
Yeah.
and then my mama heart goes, did your parents not want to absolutely like beat you when they found out,
they still
what
do.
you had done?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Cause I would have lost my mind.
Yeah.
But I think that's so cool to have that be your moment of boldness, like your moment of boldness that you can hold on to, because it is a hard journey. It is a hard fight.
Yeah.
And I see it, you see it. And you recently spent time on the ground overseas, doing work in the fight against human trafficking. Tell me about that. Tell me what type of boldness that took, and if your eyes were changed to human trafficking versus having what you had seen in domestically in the United States.
Yeah, I was given the opportunity to go to Thailand and Cambodia with 3 professors from Liberty University, and 2 of them were counselors and one was a theology professor. And we taught the neurobiology of trauma to organizations in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and then, oh my goodness, Siem Reap, Cambodia. Almost forgot the town. And so a lot of the organizations there, they have no training on human trafficking. And of course, Thailand is one of the number 1 tourist countries for sex tourism. A lot of businessmen go over there to go to the brothels and such. And so one of the big things.
And let me interject real quick, because I'm very familiar with Pattaya, Thailand, and you and I both know my good friend Melina is over there. And I want to point out that the tourists that travel here for sex tourism are Westerners.
Yeah.
And they're traveling across the country, across the world, specifically for trafficked minors.
Yeah.
So go ahead. I just want to make sure that everyone's clear that this is a domestic problem.
Yes, exactly. It's here and it's there because we're traveling over there.
Yes.
For it. And so one of the I heard a story. It was in Cambodia, and somebody told us a story about a church leader who was at a church conference, and they were speaking some about what trafficking was and how to spot the signs of it. And a church leader, he was, I believe, a pastor at his church, came up to one of the teachers and said, I need to repent. I need to tell you what I've done. And he said, I got into some debt with some gangs. I don't know how that happened. I don't know what the story is there, but he got into some trouble with some pretty big people that were also involved in gangs, and he owed a debt to them that could not be repaid. And so the gang leader said, I will come kill your whole family, and I will rape your whole family in front of you if you do not pay this debt. And he knew that he couldn't pay it. And so he actually sent his daughters to work at a brothel because he knew that they would be taken care of having sex with Westerners. It would be nicer and they would bring home enough money in order to pay that debt off. And so it was crazy to me because here we think, families are just selling their kids, or women are just, being enslaved in sex trafficking. And it's like, no, this man had to choose the lesser evil for his family. He was either going to watch his whole family be killed, or he was going to send his daughters to go have sex with Westerners so that he could repay this debt. And it was eye-opening to me that we don't always know the whole story, and we're so quick to judgment that we could look down on that church leader, but we have no idea the whole story. And So that was a big eye opener to me. And then just how prevalent it is there. I mean, it's everywhere. Yeah.
And did you feel like so I was just discussing this with another mutual friend of ours that and I'm trying to say this with the utmost grace here and non-offensively to anyone that has walked through any of this trauma.
Yeah.
We and there are no levels of trauma and there are no degrees of trauma, but it looks so starkly even more evil and more dark and more devoid of all morality, even than the trafficking that takes place in the United States. And like I said, there are no levels and there are no degrees. I don't even know how to explain it other than there's I don't know, less humanity involved.
Yes.
So were there any like special steps that you went through to prepare your heart and your mind for what you were going to see in Thailand?
I think I mentally visualized what I would encounter. And I think some of my just training with coping with that and knowing the worst helped a little bit. And I think really I did some of my research about the countries, about where we would be, and really just allowed myself to be there. I wasn't going there to stand on a corner and preach the gospel or push the Bible on people's faces. I was there to just be there. I was there to be like Christ, but not force Christ on anyone else. And so we still got to witness people, which is amazing. But at the same time, I just prepared myself to be a vessel. And I really tried to set my expectations low for myself so that God could then show up big. And that's exactly what happened. And I think in situations like that, we're so quick to, oh, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that, or I'm going to save that person, or I'm going to be able to be in this area. And really, I didn't allow myself to go there. I just said, okay, God, we're getting on a plane. We're going over there and we're going to see what happens. And when you do that, it's really amazing to watch God show up in ways that you never thought he would. So
I think that's incredible. And I think that so often we talk often about expectations and so often expectations are the biggest obstacle in us following God's call and God's will.
Yeah.
Because we place them on ourselves rather than allowing him to work within us. And I think that we Americans, with all the privilege and all of the well-meaning big hearts and Jesus in us, we set out sometimes saying, I'm going to rescue them. I'm going to save them. I'm going to help them, when it's about him and it's about the work he wants to do. And it's about bringing glory to him. And it's about exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
Getting on a plane and saying, here I am, Lord, send me and use me in the way that you would have me used, and let them see Jesus in me.
Yeah.
Because we shouldn't ever have to tell anyone we're Christians if we're walking in faith. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you're amazing. You know that I'm president of your fan club. And I think it's just so inspiring to see. Oftentimes women get their identity of purpose and their identity of calling. They get it confused and wrapped up with being a mom and being a wife. And oftentimes I see personally women that tend to think they can't start fulfilling purpose or serving in purpose until they've checked off the boxes. So the fact that you're 25 years old, you're single, and you are fully letting him use you in the way he calls you is I mean, it's an inspiration to me 100%. And I know that there are girls all over that you're going to inspire with your message and your words. And I think that if I can do anything to help cheer you on and support you, I'm right here. I've got your back.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm really excited. Do you have a timeline on any of the projects or when you expect any of them to be coming out?
Yeah. Right now the devotional is the forefront, and my goal is to have that done, and I'm probably going to be like self-publishing that and have it out by the beginning of next year is really one of my goals. And then I have no idea about the other things, but that's where God's just kind of like, let's just walk this out, and I'm just following. So I'm really working on the social media aspect and blogging and that kind of thing, and just seeing where God wants to take me next.
Awesome. So where can people find you on social media and read your blogs?
My social media is Jessica Claire Brinkley, and then that's my website as well, jessicaclairebrinkley.com.
All right. Well, everyone needs to mark that down because I think that you are someone they're going to want to follow over the years. And I get inspired by your words. I think that they are beautiful words. So
Thank you.
We will make sure that that is in the show notes. And thanks for taking time out to get on here with me today.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I hope that you guys enjoyed what you heard today. And let me just tell you that Jessica is a spitfire. I love a girl with a fire in her belly and some Jesus in her heart. Don't let that blonde hair and adorable face fool you. She is a force to be reckoned with. And hey guys, can I get really serious for a minute? Have you written a review yet? I know I ask you week in and week out, but this is what gets our podcast seen on all the platforms. It increases our visibility, it increases our stats, and it helps us to continue bringing guests to you week in and week out to inspire you to go out and lead your purpose-filled lives. So if you could please do that right now, we would so much appreciate it from my heart to yours. Write a review, rate us, and share us on social media. We will be eternally grateful. I cannot wait to chat with you next week. But until then, go out and lead your best purpose-filled lives.